Norwegian chess player Magnus Carlsen became a grandmaster in the year 2004. 16 months later, R. Praggnanandhaa was born in India. Today, the world watched with bated breath as the two battled to win their first FIDE World Cup title in Baku. The 18-year-old boy wonder against the 32-year-old world number one. Both players agreed to a draw today, leaving two more nail-biting rounds. But to most people, it's not about who wins really. Praggnanandhaa has already made history. In his run to the final, he beat both world number 2 and 3 and assured his place in the 2024 Candidates Tournament. So who is this chess powerhouse and what is his story? Our next report tells you.
This is Nagalakshmi, mother of Indian Grandmaster R. Praggnanandhaa, the 18-year-old from the chess-crazy southern state of Tamil Nadu. Nagalakshmi always accompanies him to international tournaments, quietly standing in the background, as he made headlines across the world. But recently, Nagalakshmi is the one who went viral. She was seen with tears of joy rolling down her face, and for good reason. Her son had just created history. In a sudden death, he defeated Arjun Erigesi and entered the semi-finals of the FIDE World Cup in Baku. He's only the second Indian to ever do so. The first was Vishwanathan Anand 21 years ago. But Praggnanandhaa isn't new to making history. Fondly known as Prag, growing up he was called one for the future, the OG child prodigy. He began playing the game at the age of 3 and grew up in the shadow of his sister, who was a local chess champion. His entire family was dedicated to helping him become a world champion. By the age of 7, Prag had become a FIDE master. It's the third highest title for a chess player. But his true rise to fame began in 2016, when he became the youngest international master at the age of 10, after which there was no stopping. At the age of 12, he became a grandmaster, the second youngest player to do so at the time. He reached the 2600 mark in ELO rating, a widely used ranking system, at the age of 14, another world record. It was clear that this genius sprout from India was taking the world by storm. Wait, not only that, he was also taking on the biggest players in the world, like world number 1 Norwegian chess player Magnus Carlsen. Prag defeated him, making sporting headlines across the world. Now Prag is blitzing through the Baku World Cup, and once again he sat across Carlsen today, eyed the juggernaut, and the players were enveloped in a nail-biting game. After 35 moves, they agreed to a draw, leaving 2 more rounds of enthralling moves. Which is kind of metaphorical if you think about it. It hardly mattered who won, because here's the bigger picture. Prag is already assured a place in the 2024 Candidates Tournament, which determines challengers for the World Chess Championship. He's leading the charge of how the world chess order is changing and putting India back on the map. He's one of the most ambitious chess players of this generation. It's clear that there's no stopping him. In fact, he's only getting started.
I have a quick question for you. Which 3 things do you associate with Canada? I'm no mind reader, but there's a good chance you thought of maple syrup, ice hockey, and education. Our next story is about that last bit, education. Have you ever considered an education abroad? If you don't already live in Canada, there's a good chance it was on your list. It's one of the top destinations for international students worldwide. And fun fact, it's the most popular among Indian students. The country had more than 800,000 foreign students with active visas last year, 8 lakh students last year. The number has almost tripled in the last decade. Sounds like a good thing, right? Well, apparently it isn't. The huge inflow of students is putting pressure on their housing market. Prices are skyrocketing, and now Canada is considering a cap on student visas. Here's a report.
This may sound odd, but our next story is about an even number, 800,000. That's how many students sought education outside their home countries in 1975. By 2013, this number had grown more than 4-fold. For the first time, 100,000 international students were studying in Canada, and the maple-loving nation saw this as a sweet victory. But it wasn't enough. Canada saw how lucrative this market was. It wanted to become the hub of international education. It wanted to double its number of international students by 2022 to 200,000. Cut to last year, when Canada didn't just do that, it achieved the much higher even number we talked about. While in 1975, the world had 800,000 international students, in 2022, that's how many foreign students had active visas in just Canada. The country did what it set out to. It has the third highest number of international students worldwide, after the US and UK. Last year, it welcomed students from 184 countries, setting a record. A majority of the foreign students in Canada came from India, over 200,000 of them. After all, Canada is the top destination for foreign education among Indians, and Canada has benefited from all of this. Foreign students contribute over $15 billion to its economy annually. A lucrative market indeed. Everything sounds good, right? But the reality isn't that sweet. You must have heard the famous adage, "Be careful what you wish for." It kind of applies to Canada, thanks to a bit of spillover. Now, Canada has so many students, it's creating pressure on the housing market. The cost of housing is rising, and the timing is bad. Elections are looming. They must be held by October 2025. And until then, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau needs to get his act right. He is under fire for mismanagement of the economy and for making housing unaffordable for many. The Canadian government needs to act quickly, so it has proposed a solution. And it's bad news for prospective students. Canada wants to curb the pressure on housing by capping foreign student visas. The government has blamed the sharp rise in the number of students and, as a solution, is considering limiting them. The decision hasn't been made yet, but it's certainly a front-runner. This will be a big dampener for students who have set their eyes on Canada. The country has long been a good option for education. It comes with easy-to-get work permits and good immigration opportunities. If the decision is taken, all this could change. Experts say this step may not be necessary. They have some other ideas to curb the housing prices, like changes in taxation on construction or sale of rental projects. The Canadian government is currently looking at all its options, but chances are the cap will be executed. Because what is the point of bringing in a record number of students if they don't have a place to live?
Now let's look at Thailand. The Southeast Asian nation got two prime ministers today. One was elected by the parliament after months of stalling. They had an election in the month of May, but a big number of their parliamentarians are appointed by the army, and these members stalled the selection of a prime minister. Today it finally happened. But this is not the prime minister the country is focusing on. Today an old face returned to Bangkok, their former prime minister Thaksin Shinawatra. He's back after 15 long years. He was in a self-imposed exile, and he has ended it. Shinawatra boarded a private jet in Singapore and landed in Bangkok, and within hours surrendered himself to Thailand's Supreme Court. We'll get to why in a bit, but first let's look at his return and the reception that he got. His supporters were ecstatic. Red shirts lined Bangkok streets. That's the color of Shinawatra's party, the Pheu Thai party. People were waving and cheering and chanting his name. Now, this is a man convicted of corruption, a fugitive politician, but today he was treated like a rock star.
I'm delighted. I've been thinking about him all this time, no matter which land he was in, where he was. I love only Thaksin. I'm so glad that he's back.
I wanted him to return ages ago because I love him so much, so genuine that I feel like he's a second father to me.
And he knew how to play to the gallery. As soon as Shinawatra stepped out of the airport, he took a knee. He bowed and offered tributes to a portrait of Thailand's king and queen. That's right, the first thing Thaksin Shinawatra does upon his return is pay his respects to the royal family of Thailand. It's dramatic. It's also an astute political move because it's exactly this attitude that just secured his party Thailand's prime ministership. Remember what I said at the beginning of the story. Thailand got 2 prime ministers today. Shinawat's party is called the Pheu Thai Party. Their candidate, Srettha Thavisin, is now the prime minister designate. The decision has come after months of deadlock, and they did not even win the election. The winners were another party called the Move Forward Party. They got the highest number of seats. They had a progressive agenda. They challenged Thailand's military and monarchy. Perhaps they're paying the price for that, because challenging the monarchy is dangerous ground in Thailand. The country has strict, archaic laws about respecting the royal family, and the Move Forward Party wanted to change this. The last government in Bangkok was backed by the military. They were never going to let this anti-monarchy party come to power, so they disqualified the prime ministerial candidate and stalled the democratic process. It's this deadlock that Shinawat's party, the Pheu Thai Party, exploited. They got the second highest number of seats. Now here's the twist. Initially, they had formed an alliance with the Move Forward Party. They were alliance partners. But when they saw it wasn't going anywhere, they pulled out. They cobbled together a new alliance with pro-military parties. And today they won the prime ministerial nomination. This was pure political opportunism. It has left some of their supporters unhappy. But others understand that it's pragmatic. And it paved the way for Thaksin Shinawat's return.
I don't have ill feeling towards Thaksin, but I do feel somewhat disappointed with the Pheu Thai Party. However, I also do understand that the situation forced them to take this path. No matter what, Thailand's junta-appointed Senate will not vote for the original government alliances. It's just impossible.
The Pheu Thai struck while the iron was hot. They secured the prime ministership, and Thaksin Shinawat is back. Now you may wonder, why is he back? He served as Thailand's prime minister between 2001 and 2006. Then there was a military coup and he was ousted. He was accused of corruption, disloyalty to the Thai monarchy and abuse of power. In 2008, he fled the country to avoid a jail sentence, and he's been living in exile ever since. Now the man has returned. From the airport, he went straight to Thailand's Supreme Court, and there he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. This on a day when his party's candidate is chosen as the next prime minister. All of this sounds suspicious, and that's because it is. There have been rumors about a deal between his party and the military. Shinawat is expected to get a light sentence considering his age. He's 74 years old, but he may be exploring an easier way out, securing a royal pardon. One word from Thailand's overly powerful monarch will spell the end of all his problems, which explains what he did at the airport. The elaborate act of worship, the tributes to the royals. It seems like an episode of Game of Thrones. Betrayal, puppet lawmakers, a return from exile, and swearing fealty to a king. But this is not fiction. This is Thailand in 2023, a country caught in medieval politics and a leader making the most of it. And now let's talk about the United States. America will head to polls in about 14 months. It could easily be a 2020 repeat. The obvious choices are Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The Democrats are betting on Biden. He's currently the president, so he has an advantage. The Republicans, of course, are rallying behind Donald Trump. He may be facing indictments, but that hasn't hampered his chances. However, there is a new rising star in the Republican bloc. This man, his name is Vivek Ramaswamy. He's an Indian American, he's a billionaire, and now he's the second GOP favorite after Donald Trump. So who exactly is Vivek Ramaswamy? And how did he become so popular? Let's answer the first question. Ramaswamy is an Indian origin American entrepreneur. His parents immigrated to the US from Kerala. Ramaswamy was born in Cincinnati, that's in the state of Ohio. Like most Republican favorites, he has elite credentials. He graduated top of his class. He then went to Harvard and finally attended the Yale Law School. After that, he worked at a hedge fund. The real rise came in the year 2014. That's when he founded a pharmaceutical company called Riovant. It helped him become a billionaire. Ramaswamy led the company to a $315 million IPO in 2015. It was the biggest biotech IPO at the time. It saw a meteoric rise, but it ended in failure. Its Alzheimer's drug tanked in clinical trials. Ramaswamy apparently took this failure hard. In 2021, he stepped down as the CEO. So how did he enter politics? Well, he supported Trump in the 2020 election. He also donated to a lot of candidates. But his first major foray into politics was in the year 2021. It was with his book called Woke Inc. He questioned America's quote-unquote woke culture. It made him a crowd favorite. After that, he was seen on prime-time shows every night. So his political career really began as a pundit. He even announced his candidacy on a prime-time show.
Today, the woke left preys on that vacuum. They tell you that your race, your gender, and your sexual orientation govern who you are, what you can achieve, and what you're allowed to think. This is psychological slavery, and that has created a new culture of fear in our country that has completely replaced our culture of free speech in America. And that is why today I am announcing my run for President of the United States. This isn't just a political campaign, this is a cultural movement to create a new American dream for the next generation.
You heard that. The new American dream, he says. Basically, Vivek Ramaswamy wants a revolution, one that will unify America. And what is the secret sauce? He says it's capitalism. So where does he stand on most issues? Ramaswamy labels himself as many things: anti-war, anti-woke, anti-abortion, anti-LGBTQ, and anti-immigrant. That's almost ironic given that his parents immigrated to the US. Ramaswamy has what he calls his quote-unquote bold truths. Like there are only two genders, he says, or human flourishing requires fossil fuels, whatever that means. He wants to stop US military aid to Israel. He wants to launch military strikes on Mexico, and he wants to shut down the FBI. He's nothing if not controversial. His critics have a lot of things to say about his strident views. But the man knows what he's doing. America is more polarized than ever before, and Ramaswamy is capitalizing on it. He was a fledgling pundit last year. This year, he's a prominent GOP candidate. Guess who has already endorsed him? Elon Musk. But he's nowhere near Trump, although he's targeting Trump's core audience.
I am in a presidential primary running against that individual, Donald Trump. But what I'm about to say has nothing to do with Donald Trump and everything to do with the integrity of an election and the integrity of a self-governing democracy. So I don't care whether you root for Trump or whether you don't. If you root for the integrity of our constitutional republic, then you need to be on the side of being really clear. We cannot have politically empowered prosecutors eliminating the opposition of a ruling party using arrest to power.
He wants to divide the so-called MAGA vote, MAGA, Make America Great Again. That's been Trump's rallying call, but Ramaswamy's style is different. His policy has Trump-induced orthodoxy, but it's peppered with liberal ideas. Take his campaign video, for example. It starts and ends with references to Martin Luther King Jr. Also, his style is far more subdued. Lesser rhetoric, more intellectual banter, and he's seemingly polite. Even when he disagrees, he does so respectfully. Will this work in his favor? Well, it has so far. Until recently, this race was being called a battle between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump for the Republicans. But now it could be Vivek Ramaswamy. Plus age is on his side. He's only 38 years old. So if not this time, then maybe next. Then now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. Starting with Spain, their football team came home to a hero's welcome. Players danced with fans and celebrated their historic win. In Germany, some of the world's best mountain bikers are taking their skill to new highs. Their backflips will leave you in awe. And NASA has released images of the Ring Nebula. It shows the final stages of a dying star. You don't want to miss this. And finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1998, massive protests broke out in the Sudanese capital of Khartoum. This happened after UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, he was then the Prime Minister, he supported US military strikes in Sudan and Afghanistan. Protesters hurled stones at the British Embassy and tore its national flag to pieces. We're leaving you with that. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.